We are back. It is time for some more of George's Secret Key to the Universe. We're reading chapter 13 today, and I have a dolphin with me today, my Addie's little dolphin. Alright, so chapter 13. They are still in space, traveling around and discovering new things. The comet was now traveling straight again. In front of them, the sun was bigger and brighter than before, but still very small compared to its size when seen from the Earth. George spotted another bright dot that he hadn't noticed before, a dot that was quickly growing bigger as they approached it. "What's over there?" he asked, pointing ahead to the right. "Is that another planet?" But there was no reply. When he looked around, Annie had gone. George untied himself from the comet and followed the trail of footprints she had left in the icy powder. He carefully gauged or kind of measured the length of his steps so that he wouldn't find himself flying off the comet again. So this isn't the kind of measuring where we measure with a ruler, but gauged like he was very careful and calculated and thought through everything he did so he didn't accidentally fly away. After climbing carefully over a small icy hill, he saw her. She was peering into a hole in the ground. Around the hole were bits and pieces of rock that seemed to have been spat out by the comet itself. So in this little picture is George following Annie's footprints. George walked over and looked down into the hole too. It was a few feet deep, with nothing much to be seen at the bottom. "What is it?" he asked. "Have you found something?" "Well, you see, I went for a walk," Annie started to explain. "Why didn't you tell me?" George interrupted her. "You were shouting at me about not shouting," said Annie, "so I thought I'd just go by myself, because then there'd be no one to get mad at me," she added pointedly. "I'm not mad at you," said George. "Yes, you are. You're always angry with me. It doesn't make any difference if I'm nice to you or not." "I'm not angry," shouted George. "Yes, you are," shouted back Annie, balling her gloved hands into fists and shaking them at George. As she did so, something extraordinary happened. A little fountain of gas and dirt blew up from the ground just next to her. We learned about gas last week. "Now look what you've done," complained George. But as he spoke, another little fountain erupted through the rock right next to him. It formed a cloud of dust that slowly disappeared. "Annie, what's happening?" he asked. It's nothing," replied Annie. "This is all fine." If you look closely, right there, you can see where the cloud is bursting through. They both look a little concerned. "This is all fine, don't worry," but she didn't sound very sure. "Why don't we go and sit down where we were before?" she suggested. "It's nicer over there." But as they walked back, more and more little geysers of dust erupted around them, leaving a haze of smoke in the air. I bet it was hard to see. Neither of them felt very safe, but neither of them wanted to admit it. They just walked more and more quickly toward the place where they'd been sitting before. Without saying a word, they anchored themselves to the comet once more. In the sky, the bright dot George had seen growing had become much bigger. It now looked like a planet with red and blue stripes. "That's Jupiter," Annie said, breaking the silence, but she was whispering now. She didn't sound like the confident show-off she had been earlier. "It's the biggest of the planets, about twice the volume of Saturn. That makes it more than 1,000 times the volume of Earth." "Does Jupiter have moons too?" George asked. "Yes, it does," replied Annie, "but I don't know how many. I didn't count them last time I was here, so I'm not sure." "Have you really been here before?" George looked suspicious. "Of course I have," said Annie indignantly. George wasn't sure he believed her. It's kind of the problem if you tell stories or lies. Sometimes people have a hard time believing you. Once again, the comet and Annie and George started to fall. As they fell, George gazed at Jupiter. Even by Saturn's standards, Jupiter was enormous. As they flew by, Annie pointed out a big red mark on Jupiter's surface. "That thing," she said, "is a huge storm. It's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even more, I don't know. It's over twice the size of Earth." As they moved away from Jupiter, George counted how many moons he could spot. "4 big ones," he said. There's Jupiter, and there they are sitting on the comet. You can see how much bigger it is than when they went by Saturn. 4 big ones what? Moons. Jupiter has 4 big moons and lots of little moons. I think it has even more moons than Saturn. "Oh, okay," said Annie, who was sounding nervous now. "If you say so." George was worried. It wasn't like Annie to agree with anything he said. He noticed she had shuffled a little closer to him. She slipped her hand in its space glove into his. All around them, new jets of gas and dust were springing up out of the rock, each one spitting out a small cloud. A thin haze was forming over the whole comet, kind of like a fog. "Are you all right?" he asked Annie. She had stopped showing off and being rude, and he felt sure something was very wrong. "George, Annie started to reply when a huge rock smashed into the comet behind them, shaking the ground like an earthquake, and sending up even more dust and ice into the haze. Looking up, George and Annie saw there were hundreds and hundreds of rocks, all coming toward them at high speed, and there was nowhere to hide. "Asteroids!" cried Annie. "We're in an asteroid storm." Oh no. That's the end of chapter 13. The very last page has some facts about Jupiter. So Jupiter is the 5th closest planet to the sun. The average distance is 483.6 million miles. Remember, the Earth is 93 million miles, so that's a lot farther. The diameter, the distance across, is 88,846 miles, whereas the Earth, it says, is 11.209 diameters at the equator on Earth. So the surface area is 120.5 of Earth, so way bigger. Remember, that surface area is how we would cover it with paper. The volume is 1,321 times the Earth's volume. Mass is 317 times Earth's mass. The gravity is 236% of Earth's gravity, so you would be really heavy on Jupiter. The structure, the way that it's built, is actually small compared to the size of the planet. It has a small rocky core in the middle, surrounded by a liquid metal layer that smoothly turns into a liquid hydrogen layer, so you have liquid and then gas. As the height increases, so as you go farther out, it's just gas. This liquid then smoothly turns into an atmosphere made of hydrogen gas, which surrounds it all. Even though it is bigger, Jupiter's overall composition is similar to Saturn. So it's bigger than Saturn, but it's made kind of the same way. The great red spot on Jupiter's surface is a giant hurricane-type storm, a storm that has lasted for more than 3 centuries, so more than 300 years. But it may have been there for even longer. They saw it for the first time in 1655. The Great Red Spot Storm is huge. The storm is more than twice the size of Earth, so you could put more than two Earths inside of that little spot. The winds on Jupiter reach 620 miles per hour, and it takes Jupiter 11.86 Earth years to circle the sun. So when we've gone around the sun almost 12 times, Jupiter's only gone once. So far, Jupiter has 63 confirmed moons. 4 of them are big enough to be round and were seen by the Italian scientist Galileo in 1610. Remember, Eric talked about that telescope being Galileo's. These are collectively known, so as a group, we call them the Galilean moons. They are Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, and they're about the same size as our moon. So there's the picture they show with Jupiter, and then there's the hurricane, the storm you can see in the red spot, and they're showing that size of Earth compared to that spot. So you could see that you could fit more than two of them. All right, that's the end of chapter 13.